Hi Audrey and anyone else that's listening. It's Martin here from Angel Martin Interiors, and this is my 20-minute presentation for the Sony interface concept. Before I start, I just wanted to say I've had a great time doing this. It's been great fun, and I hope that that level of enthusiasm comes across in the presentation. Okay, enjoy. Here we go. Right, starting with the research. We covered quite a lot of ground on the research, so we don't have time within this presentation to go through it all, but I will look at the highlights. We looked at the building, location, and the area. Now, as part of the primary research, I made sure that I went down to site and actually had a look at it and got a feel of the area, which was really, really useful and informative. We looked at retail trends, Sony history, Sony logo, the historical context, the context of the gaming industry specifically, the current PlayStation, gaming hardware, gaming statistics, future technology, competitors, target market, sustainability, and colour theory. In short, we've covered an awful lot of ground, so if you look in the dossier, all that information is there for you. The things that really were highlighted within the research were as follows. The word experience was really, really important. It kept coming up again and again. And companies like Samsung, Apple, and even Microsoft are embracing the retail experience within their new flagship showrooms. The main thing is that the retail industry, as we know it, is dying on its feet today. The internet is taking a huge proportion of the market away from it. So they need to find ways of bringing people back to the high street, and this is where this word experience comes in, because we need to offer the customer an experience to attract them into this retail environment. Interface. Now, the reason we highlighted interface was that it was really important to look at the interface between the customers and the actual equipment or the software that they're using. And what was interesting about this was that when we looked at the gaming statistics on video games, we found that it was starting to move in a different direction. Now, Sony at the moment is based on the Sony PlayStation, which is a box that they want to sell. So they're in a traditional selling retail format where they sell you a box over the counter. We believe that will move over the next 20 years to a situation where people will be buying gaming experiences. Instead of buying the box as such, the gaming statistics have already shown that people are moving into internet access to these games. They're using mobile devices to access games, which raises the question, will they even want to buy a PlayStation box as we know it today? Will there be a place for it in 20 years? We don't believe so. So this Sony experience, as we're calling it, should be about offering that experience to people, selling Sony as a concept, as a company, and offering them access to the various gaming platforms. Now, the personal bubble of reality related specifically to, as part of the research, we went to the Samsung experience. And you see that word experience keeps coming up again and again. It's not intentional. But the most enjoyable part of the day was the time I spent in the virtual reality area. I was surrounded by people. It was a very busy area, but I was within my own bubble of reality. And it was a fantastic experience, something that we have to carry through to the shop environment. Now, brand loyalty was very important to Sony, in as far as they've been trading with these games since the inception of the video game industry. So they have a very, very loyal following. So it's important that we continue with that and we look after their existing customers. Now, under the heading of carbon neutral, we looked at eco-friendly aspects of the interior design. As part of the design, we've looked at the lighting, we've looked at the heating to make it as efficient as possible to reduce the carbon footprint. And we've also looked, with all the materials that we're using, at infinite recyclability. So that instead of just using eco-friendly materials, we're trying to use as many materials as possible, which will literally infinitely recycle. So we are reducing the impact on the environment as much as we possibly can. And then finally we come to accessibility, which was incredibly important. The one thing that occurred to us the more we researched was that the gaming platform as such is a level playing field. It appeals to all levels of the market, regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of ability or disability. It really doesn't matter. Everybody has an equal opportunity in this digital environment. And the new Sony Experience should take this into account and make it accessible to everyone. It's a really important aspect. Now, diving into the concept itself, we go back to this idea of a bubble of reality. The other way of phrasing that is we were looking at a space within a space. And as a starting point, we found this image here, which the team really liked. It's a Chinese lantern, Physalis alcakenji, I believe it's called in Latin. It shows this wonderful fruit in the middle, this perfect sphere, surrounded by this quite organic cage around the outside. And it sort of symbolised pretty much what we were trying to get across with the concept. So we started with that image. We looked at abstracting it here. We abstracted it further into this image and eventually came up with this graphic here, which was intended to be the graphic we were going to use to generate the interior concept with. But after many discussions, we just felt it was a little bit abstract. What we had in our mind was a very clean, sharp, modern interior for Sony. So we wanted the abstract nature of this wasn't quite working for us. So we came up with this symbol here. And if you look at this in a pattern repeat, you end up with this wonderful symmetrical cage coming through. And we were quite excited about this. So we wanted to take this forward. Now, looking at the space, we started to look at zone plans. Now, these top two zone plans work reasonably well. What we failed to take into consideration with these was that the site is actually split onto 3 floors. So whilst the plans read very well, we've got to understand from a 3-dimensional point of view that all these activities are spread across 3 different levels. And these weren't really taking that into consideration. So when we looked at zone plan 3, we started to zone at different levels. So for instance, the street level was all about customer service. So we grouped all of the activities together for that. The lower ground floor was about the gaming experience, so obviously all of the gaming pods and the facilities down there. And then the mezzanine level, which was a private area, which is this little area at the top here, as a very private area, somewhere that they can have private seminars and one-to-one meetings and that sort of thing. So we've got a basic outline for how we want to lay the shop out. We extended that into a 3D model, so you can see the colours here clearly represent the areas we're talking about, but you can see them all on the same drawing here, and you can appreciate the different levels and the horizontal and the vertical access within the building. The staircase is indicated here. We've got sight lines, ideas on how light's going to enter the building. We've got access routes through, and we're even indicating fire exits, so that we know the general flow of the building and the relationship is correct. Whilst we were doing this, we had designers working on the interior concepts. This is one of the very early sketches we did. We had this idea of this literally a bubble cockpit environment, which we were quite excited about. So this is one of the early drawings for that. We also did rough sketch models as well, showing the airflow from the air conditioning units, and again the light and the views through from the various elements. So we're beginning to explore the building now. To bring that back to reality, we went back to scale plans to understand the physical scale of the building and what we could sensibly get in within the space. So when we look at the mezzanine, for instance, it's a relatively small area accessed by a lift, but we have this area at the back here which we want to use as a museum display area for Sony. This seating area here for one-to-one meetings, for one-to-one gaming tutorials, for instance. The street level, you come in at this point here. You get a view straight down the shop there, down the main staircase there, with a balustrade protecting the edge there. There's a service desk here and seating areas. This area here is all about meeting, a physical meeting with different people, with meeting with friends that you're meeting at the shop, meeting with staff and that sort of thing. And of course you'll have the views over the balcony towards this lower area here. Now the lower area itself, now this is the heart of the gaming experience, so it's a really exciting area this. We've put a cafe dead centre here with a kitchen servicing that, access via the stair and the lift, and then we've got these different gaming experience from the gaming cockpit pods, traditional gaming using keyboard here, recumbent gaming areas here. Here we're looking at accessibility needs, so different ways of giving people access. And then we've got the virtual reality area at the back. So this is a really this is the core, if you like, of the main design. This floor. Now, to move this forward, we started to do white models, as you can see with these two illustrations on the top. The white models help us because it allows us to see the whole space in 3D, so we can begin to see the surfaces here, how the light affects on the curved surfaces and the flat surfaces, how the transparent surfaces are beginning to react with each other. We're looking at the glass into the floor. So these are really useful models to physically understand the space almost from a sculptural perspective. If you remember in the research, we did mention about corporate identity. This is looking 20 years ahead, but we still wanted to clearly identify this space as a Sony corporate space. So we've done the interior using these watercolors here, just to experiment with color. We've decided on a pure white scheme and using this iconic blue that Sony used just on the tinted glass, onto some of the fabrics, and possibly backlighting some of these white features with blue LED lighting. So we've got a very strong look to it, which we think is appropriate. We then went back to the detail. We said as part of the introduction that the gaming interfaces were key, having this experience within that, and you have an experience via a gaming interface. So we looked at different ways of interfacing. The early sketch of the bubble pod was developed further to create this illustration here. So we've got this bubble cockpit environment. The designers went a bit further and actually modelled the interior of this so that we can see the seating. Now this is still an analog interface, so you're dealing with manual joysticks, you're pressing buttons, you've got this touch surface here. So it's very familiar with the way we interface with games at the moment, but it's just much more advanced. Then we look at the virtual environment down here. Now we pulled this montage together. What we were expressing was the fact that this is a virtual reality environment, but more than that, it was to be a fully immersive environment. So it's appealing to everything from sight, sound, to smell. It's appealing to all the senses effectively. So it was fully immersive, and we'll come back to that. The recumbent gaming chairs worked really well. Now these will be holographic interfaces, and these can be adapted, as you can see here, for accessibility needs, so that we're showing a pod adapted here for wheelchair access. So we've got the interfaces worked out. What was also important to us at this stage was to effectively prove that these worked. So if you look at this drawing here, we've included a 90-page technical drawing package with the dossier, and we're the first to admit it is excessive, it's over the top, yes, but we were having fun. It's as simple as that. We were just enjoying doing it, and it was lovely working with all of these different shapes and these different models. This one is of the bubble pod, the section through, and it just shows how we're looking at the chair, the ergonomics of the chair, how all these different surfaces would have to adjust to cater for different people, how the airflow would run around the pod, how we could introduce lighting in. It's just looking at all these details in a really sort of fine, almost to a microscopic level. We just wanted to prove that every element of this works. So when you're looking at a visual, you have the confidence in us to know that we know what we're talking about, and we know we can make it work for you. We can take it to the next level effectively. So when we come to this final image here, you'll notice that we started with the outside of the shop. Now, we fully understand that this is way beyond the brief, but we think it's an important aspect. Great Marlborough Street at the moment is a very busy area with traffic coming through along the main road here. From our research, we believe this will almost certainly be pedestrianised within the next 20 years, and this in turn will change the demographic of people using the area. So from that point of view, by implication, it'll change the type of people that are actually going to use the shop. So it is very relevant to the shop design. We're also considering that the new age of the internet means that from a business point of view, people are accessing, all over the world. It's a 24-hour community effectively, and we think this will affect retail in the future. So we have to consider this as a shop that could possibly be open 24 hours a day, and we have to create an environment outside that would cater for that. You'll also notice, if you look here, that we've put a glass box on the front of the shop. When we did the original research, we thought we'd covered every aspect of what could possibly happen in the future and what would affect retail. The one thing we hadn't considered was a pandemic. And of course, with recent events, you've seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has literally destroyed the retail market. It's had a devastating effect. And this will reoccur. So it's something that we have to consider as part of the design philosophy for a retail outlet. So we've put a glass box on here. It's effectively a clean room. So it's just giving people the confidence to know that as they pass through here, they're entering a safe environment. And we think that's going to be an important aspect of future retail. Now, when I play this, we've done a little movie for you coming down. You can see this is very much an urban park environment rather than a busy road. Sony are going to have the opportunity to bring their logo and their advertising out onto the street level, extending the reach, if you like. Then as we look at the seating area outside, people can sit out here. They'll have access to the high-speed internet from the shop, which effectively extends their sale area out onto the pavement, which is quite interesting. Now we're just coming through the clean room now, through the double doors. And just as we come through these doors, I'll stop the video there. That's one of the most important views of the shop. That's what you see when you first enter. You've probably made an appointment because you want one of these experiences in the pod or in the virtual reality room. So at this point, you're actually quite excited. You've just arrived and you get an open view straight through the shop. You'll get the view down the stairs towards the garden cafe. You can see the pods on the back wall. And as we were modelling earlier on, although we've got 3 floors, we've made sure that these cascade back so that you've got this uninterrupted view going through. Now coming along here, this is all about customer service and customer interaction, but you will be able to see these huge screens on the back wall here showing video play. You'll be able to look over the balcony to the lower cafe areas. And then if we take a slight detour, we're now going to come through the mezzanine level, which is a private meeting area. It could be for one-to-one gaming tutorials, which I don't think are offered at the moment anywhere, so that'd be quite nice to introduce. We've got the museum area to the right. And then as we come over the top here to the gaming cockpits, this is pretty much the view just coming in now that you're going to get from one of these pods. It's going to be like flying, so you'll see from a high level straight down the length of the shop, which will be quite good fun. We're coming down now into the cafe area. You see the kitchen here on the left. There are 2 levels of worktop for accessibility needs, obviously a fully functional kitchen. Then you come through to the gaming area at the back. Now this area here has got the recumbent holographic gaming pods here to the left. This area is going to be devoted to accessibility, to make sure that everybody has access to these gaming facilities. And then we move forward, moving to the back towards the virtual the virtual gaming area. Now this room is fully sound insulated. The reason will become apparent in a minute as we come through here. You'll be wearing virtual goggles, obviously, but within the walls we're building in speakers. So we're going to have 8.1 surround sound, bass speakers where the sound waves are literally going to hit you. We've got fans into the wall here which will blow hot and cold air, simulating desert environments, simulating Arctic environments, for instance. We've got infrared lights here, so if an explosion went off within the game, you'll feel a heat bloom coming from the direction of the explosion. And even down to small details, if you look at these nodes in the wall here, these will release micro scents into the room, so that they'll be, if you're in, for instance, a meadow environment, you're going to smell cut grass. If you're in a war game environment, you're going to smell burning gasoline. So this is a fully immersive environment. And the control panel here will set the level of intensity for serious hardcore gamers or for more of a mild experience for people that just want to try out virtual reality for the first time. And then we're moving through here, through to the main body of the gaming area again, over the kitchen towards the gaming pods. And you can see the video walls on the left. And the fans here, we wanted to keep the ceiling height as high as possible so that we've put all of the air conditioning and the air handling into these turbo fans on the wall, which we thought was quite a fun way of doing it. And just to round off, if you look at this area here, this is a traditional gaming area where you interface with a keyboard and a mouse. As part of the research, we also identified that there was a massive age range of people who want to play these games. Myself, I'm 55 years old. By the time this shop is brought into the real world, I'll be 75 years old, which is an astonishing thought. But I won't be interested in virtual reality. I'll want the comfort of my keyboard and my mouse. So we wanted this to appeal to everybody. So just to round up, I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. We've had a ball doing it, so I'll round off by leaving you with this page. This is all of our contact details. If you need to know more, if you want to talk to us, or you want to arrange a meeting, please feel free, and you can contact me on the information in front of you. Thanks very much for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. Have a nice day.